through a policy of engagement even as it does not formally recognize the Taliban. New Delhi has reopened diplomatic channels, restored our presence in Kabul and held direct talks with Taliban representatives. India continues humanitarian assistance, issues visas and explores limited trade and connectivity while making clear that the recognition of the Taliban regime will depend on its conduct, especially on terrorism and human rights. With this approach, New Delhi maintains influence in Afghanistan without legitimizing the regime. The question is simple: if New Delhi can engage Kabul and Malé despite deep fault lines, why not Dhaka? The answer lies in the difference between the two. While the Taliban has shown willingness to cooperate with India and keep Pakistan at arm's length, Yunus and Jamaat are acting like B team of Pakistan. Taliban's relation with India are independent, whereas Yunus has embraced Pakistan. Afghanistan, even under the radical extremists, has always been an independent cultural entity, whereas Bangladesh is a creation of the recent freedom struggle. And then there is the question of Sheikh Hasina. India has long invested politically and strategically in Hasina's leadership, seeing her as a stabilizing force and a reliable partner of security in counter-terrorism. Her political marginalization has created trust deficits, uncertainty and competing power centers in Dhaka, complicating New Delhi's outreach and recalibration with Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina's continued stay in India has become a sensitive fault line in India-Bangladesh ties. Dhaka views her presence as political shelter, complicating engagement with current dispensation. For New Delhi, balancing humanitarian consideration with strategic interest has narrowed diplomatic space, adding strain to the relationship. But like Hasina, India has been sheltering the Dalai Lama, yet engages with China independently. Aung San Suu Kyi had studied in India in the 60s and then from 87 to 89 and had close ties to the former Myanmar leader, yet maintained strategic ties with junta after her ouster. Sheikh Hasina has lived in exile in India from 75 to 81 too. Nepal's King Tribhuvan took refuge in India in 1950s. After fleeing Kathmandu, former Maldivian President Mohammad Nasheed sought refuge in India in 2015 after being sentenced to 13 years in prison by a Maldivian court. But there are former officers who say otherwise.
It seems India is not diplomatically active, that India does not have proper rapport, contact with the government there, however weak, however unreliable it is, but it is a government. And other forces, other political forces. And by keeping Sheikh Hasina here, India has made it difficult to have good relations, to repair the relations with Bangladesh, and has given an opportunity to those who want to spoil the relations. You know, what India should have done, and I have said this earlier, as soon as she came, it was right to give her the asylum. But very soon, India should have arranged for her to find another place, another country. I don't want to name which country or which region. It can be in Africa, it can be in Latin America or anywhere. And persuaded her as gently as possible, but as effectively as necessary to go there. Because our people say that, it is a question of the extradition treaty, which says that no political extradition. That is true, correct. Good argument. But don't forget, Bangladeshis are saying that she is a criminal. I'm not saying that she is a criminal, but their argument is that she is a criminal as determined by the court. Now, it may be a kangaroo court, but point is it's a court. So, looking back, our policy towards Bangladesh could have been better.
Now, New Delhi continues to have strong bilateral ties with current dispensation in Nepal, Maldives, Myanmar and all other allies, even with political fluctuation in these countries. Now, is it a time for a different approach for New Delhi? Let me introduce my guest, Ambassador Veena Sikri from our Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Suhas Chakma, Director Rights and Risk Analysis Group, Professor Swaran Singh, School of International Studies, JNU, and Major General Rajan Kocha. First of all, Madam Sikri, to you, I have outlined certain differences. Can Kabul playbook be applied in Dhaka? But, so two-pronged. Is Sheikh Hasina a liability, Madam? And second, are two countries the same thing in terms of our intervention, Kabul and Dhaka? To you, Madam, first.
First of all, I think that it is most important to remember that India does not follow politics of convenience. We are not one of those countries which will change policies at the drop of a hat and say, oh, this is more convenient, so let's get rid of this person, and that is more convenient. No, we have a consistent foreign policy. We have certain principles in our foreign policy, and we follow them. And I think that in this context, saying, even talking about, arranging to send Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to another country or another place is absolutely unheard of. Do you do that with your good friends? Do you do that with somebody who respected your security red lines in Bangladesh for 15 years? And in return, you had between Bangladesh and India mutual economic cooperation, which gave them 6.5%, 7% economic growth, took them out of the least category status. So I think anybody who recommends this politics of convenience does not appreciate the finer points of foreign policy and does not appreciate how, not only how foreign policy is made, but how you have to be perceived by everyone. You be perceived as a consistent country, as a country who follows principles and not a policy of convenience, and a country who respects their friends and knows who their friends are. We have given many examples of people who have stayed in India in the write-up that you just showed, whether it is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, other leaders from Maldives, so many others, where we've done this. This is all in keeping with India's foreign policy principles that we have followed. So please let us very clearly accept that we cannot have a politics of convenience. If India were to follow a politics of convenience, it's going to be very, very difficult for India to convince anybody about our long-term aspirations in the world. Secondly, I would like to talk about Taliban. Now, the Taliban, let us notice one thing very clearly, that during Taliban 1, when Taliban 1 and Pakistan were almost interoperable, as it were, India had no relation with the Taliban government. None at all. Now, under Taliban 2, we have seen very clearly what is the objective of the government. They want to get the support of their own people, and so they want the humanitarian projects, they want the humanitarian aid to continue. And we have seen that they recognize the role of Pakistan as a spoiler in the region, as a promoter of violence, as a supporter of various, Al-Qaeda and other groups, that terrorist groups, their own groups like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Taiba that are very ready to come across into Afghanistan. So for a variety of reasons, considering what they are doing and what their objectives are, India has opened a dialogue with the Taliban government. And we have said that we will talk to them. We've done it very steadily by stages. And very carefully, the projects are continuing and the relationship is continuing. There is absolutely no comparison between what is happening between Taliban and India and what is happening in Dhaka. First of all, the regime in Dhaka is an illegal, unconstitutional regime. The regime in Taliban was established by an agreement that was done between them and the United States. So I think for a variety of reasons, there is absolutely no comparison between the two things. And to say that we should now pamper to an unelected, unconstitutional regime which is promoting this regime in Bangladesh and compare it to others is not correct.
Okay. Your opening comments, Suhas?
No, I completely agree with Madam Sikri, but at the same point, I'll say that whatever was said by Mr. Fabian, I don't think that's the correct approach. Because in that case, nobody will trust India. And we have to bear in mind that we do not share a border with Afghanistan, but we do share the longest border with Bangladesh. So our relationship has to be completely different. And if we are keeping Dalai Lama, obviously we are not only keeping him on humanitarian grounds. China and many other countries see the Dalai Lama is being used as some kind of a leverage with China. So now if we can hold on to China, China's pressure on Dalai Lama, there is no reason for us not to be able to hold on to Sheikh Hasina. And in fact, I would say that if Sheikh Hasina is actually sent to any other country, it would mean actually prosecuting her in other countries. India cannot afford to do that because of the conviction in the court, through the kangaroo court in Dhaka. If she goes to any other country, she will be prosecuted through the International Criminal Court or individual cases which are filed in the European courts. Then she will be subject to lots of litigation, then she will be politically destroyed. But at the end of the day, we have to remember ourselves that the statecraft is about also giving shelter to your people. Otherwise, Tariq Jia won't be living in London for so many years. So Tariq Jia, irrespective of whoever says what, is an asset of MI6. Now, if MI6 can keep Tariq Jia for so many years, what prevents us keeping Sheikh Hasina in Delhi? I think we have to keep that in mind. Had Sheikh Hasina been sent to any other country, then she would have been a set of that country, or she would have been picked up by any other country. Then can India afford to do that? Because at the end of the day, even now, possibly if there is free and fair election, if Awami League is allowed, you cannot possibly form the government in Dhaka without Awami League. So can government of India afford to do that? Maybe it's not convenient at this particular point of time, but I think, the whole idea that, for promotion of bilateral relation, that you accept anything and everything, I don't think that's the way foreign policy can be conducted, because ultimately we have relations with all other political parties in Nepal or elsewhere. Of course, there are certain parties which might be favored because they ideologically belong to same platform. It happens all over the world, not only in India.
The reason this will bring me to the another question. I'll start with Professor Swaran Singh and then go to General Kocher. But after a short break, because the question would be, a lot of people have written about this fact. Are we looking at the relationship with Bangladesh too emotionally? But after a short break.
सामने नया सुपरमार्केट खुलने वाला है। क्या करूं कि पुराने कस्टमर भी रहें और नए भी आ जाएं?
देखो, आप दुकान के बाहर एक चाय कॉर्नर लगा सकते हो। चाय पीते पीते पुराने कस्टमर बातचीत करेंगे, उन्हें देखकर नए कस्टमर भी आएंगे और एक्स्ट्रा कमाई भी होगी। इसके अलावा आपके बिल्स देख के समझ लेते हैं कि कौन सा सामान कितना बिका है।
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
लाइफ जब भी आगे बढ़ने का मौका दे तो अपनी सुपर पावर, अपना गोल्ड यूज करिए और IIFL फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए।
IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात।
Professor Singh, if I have to be the devil's advocate, a lot of write-ups have come in newspapers, you must have also read them. Their argument has been that we have to look at Bangladesh in slightly less emotional way. If I may quote unquote, dry national security perspective is the word which is being very commonly used. Your comments, sir.
That's obviously the ideal type of diplomacy that one assumes to be as objective and detached as possible. But when you have such deep cultural people-to-people linkages between these two countries, in fact, Osman Hadi's Greater Bangladesh map that was published by him in his newspaper Amar Desh recently included a large part of India into it. So once you have that kind of intense connections with both sides, I think it's not possible to completely detach emotions. But emotions should not be overpowering is what is required. They will be part of how two nations will engage with each other. For example, the whole issue of India providing a secure place to Sheikh Hasina is partly emotional because of the long, very close personal relationship that the leaders shared and the nations shared for a long period of time. But remember, that request came from Bangladesh. That request, if I have to be specific, came from Bangladesh army that was not able to provide security to her. And India had a very limited time to decide on that matter. So India decided, and if we have to only look at facts and not emotions, then India has clarified that India is giving her a secure place only as long as she is able to find a place for herself. And that this is driven by our concern for her physical safety. And once you have capital punishment announced against her in Bangladesh Kangaroo Court, obviously matters get complicated, but I will not completely disagree with the Mr. Fabian. I think since India had clarified that it's not a political asylum for India, in that sense, there is no harm in looking and facilitating if she can find a more safe place in terms of political asylum, which initially was being explored in London, I assume, until the United States reacted in a very negative fashion. So potentially, maybe some of the Islamic countries, Gulf countries. I'm not saying it should happen in under duress or giving a projection that she is expendable, etc., etc. But that is a long-term option. And when it comes to whether His Holiness the Dalai Lama or Sheikh Hasina are a liability or an asset, that I think primarily depends on India's leverages, India's diplomatic finesse, and how we want to utilize that asset, or does it become a liability for India? And that's a separate matter. And I think that should not be intermingled with what is happening right now between India and Bangladesh. The fact that Indian High Commissioner is invited to Foreign Office and told things which are unrelated to the violence at hand. India is being blamed for hosting Sheikh Hasina and that she's exporting terrorism to Bangladesh. And then coming to the point that, we are hearing rumors that the killers of Osman Hadi have run away to India, etc., etc. India is always more than willing to collaborate and help. And Ambassador Sikri would vouch me that India is also capable of, helping in looking at where these could be people who are creating problem, or if the killers have run away somewhere, etc., etc. And then when it comes to Taliban and Bangladesh, those are apples and oranges in that sense. Taliban government is not recognized by India at all. We are only dealing in terms of very minimal contact, primarily to make sure that India has access to its investments and various projects that India has in Afghanistan, that we can help in terms of humanitarian crisis that that country has been facing. With Bangladesh, it's a very different relationship, and I agree again with Ambassador Sikri. It's a regime which was simply meant to, bring house in order, hold elections, has been dragging. And apparently, there will be questions whether this uncontrolled violence is partly also there because they want to again postpone elections and see that this chief advisor's government continues for a longer period of time. And it's a very different relationship with Bangladesh that India shares. It's a large democracy in India's neighborhood. India has stakes of that kind with people there. We have, very different relationship with Taliban. It's a much more strategic, security-centric approach that India takes.
But you see, the larger issue is, General Kocha, no one expected after 25 years of supporting Northern Alliance, we ended up supporting Taliban. In fact, we did everything to ensure that the Taliban does not come to power. But we still have a word. You remember if, the large social media war that happened between Indians and the accounts in Maldives, the whole entire Lakshadweep thing came up. But then ultimately, Prime Minister was there at their National Day. So my question is then, how does India engage, and with whom do we engage? If we say that, the Pakistan's B team is running Bangladesh, which is right.
Karthik, thank you for inviting me. I've heard my fellow speakers here, and very interesting arguments actually come up. What is important here is that without any doubt, we are seeing the resurgence of Jamaat-e-Islami in Bangladesh. So that is a cause of concern for us, because today on the streets, if you see the people, they are mostly Jamaat cadres, approximately 8% of the vote base in Bangladesh. And the narrative is changing in Bangladesh towards an anti-India sentiment, and Sheikh Hasina seems to be the fulcrum of the narrative, because that is what when I talk to Bangladeshi journalists, I get this impression that because Sheikh Hasina has been given shelter in India, India is perceived to be close to the Awami League, perceived to be close to one political party in Bangladesh, instead of having overreach over the entire political system or the people of Bangladesh. So this is a question of perception management, and therefore I feel it is very important. I'm not debating the decision whether we have kept Sheikh Hasina in India, so whether it was right or wrong, because a decision has been made and we have to go by that decision, good or bad. I've also heard Ambassador Fabian's viewpoint, and he does make sense. But at the same time, pragmatism, I think, is the order of the day. And if India has taken the decision, so be it. And we have to now support that kind of a situation. Now, the question important here is in this discussion is that how do we go forward? Do we wait for the elections in Bangladesh to take place and see what kind of regime is there? Will we be sure that there will be a free and fair elections in Bangladesh? And if a past record is to be seen, even if BNP comes to power, BNP has never been a friend of India. It's always been with China and Pakistan, and we have seen it actually happening. So, where does India go from there? So, it is extremely important here because diplomatic leverage is extremely important right now because we have engaged with Bangladesh for so many decades. One is not supposed to be getting an impression that we don't have any kind of leverage with Bangladesh. You see the kind of export and import. It's almost $11.07 billion of trade on one side from India to Bangladesh, and from the imports from the Bangladesh side is only $1.84 billion. So there is a sizable amount of trade with Bangladesh. The power situation, the electricity supplies goes from India, and remember that 90% of the Bangladesh land boundaries are with India. So there is no question that India will not be having the leverage. I think India is waiting for the right moment to talk to a proper regime, because right now Muhammad Yunus presents a totally fractured mind as far as India is concerned. Because his statements which are emanating from Bangladesh are only hate India, anti-India. So I think possibly India is constrained from talking to him as of now.
Okay, so Ambassador Sikri, closing comment from you. What is our leverage there? Then what, do we have any leverage there in the system?
Well, I think first of all, I don't know how we can, this is not a established system. This is an illegal, unconstitutional government. And certainly the elections should be free, fair and inclusive, so that when the new regime is established, we have said already that we are prepared to do business with an elected government from a free, fair and participatory election. And right now it's only a holding process. And then in the holding process, when there is a fake case done in a court which is not eligible to try these cases, and all kinds of wrong decisions have been taken, I don't see why we should be even bending over backwards to take that on board. And I think this whole business of looking for another place for Sheikh Hasina to stay is equivalent to saying we want to send her back to Bangladesh to be killed.
Okay.
I mean, that's what she said in an interview. If she goes back to Bangladesh, she'll be shot dead. And if we want to do that, fine, look for another place, because that government, if it's UK or anywhere else, will certainly hand her over, because they believe that the trial is fair and so on and so forth. So I think that we should not deceive ourselves on this matter, and we should be quite realistic. She knows, we know, the whole world knows what is going on. So let's please be very realistic in our foreign policy and in our neighborhood first foreign policy, and wait and insist upon free, fair, inclusive, and therefore credible elections.
Okay, thank you all of you. Thank you all of you. So this is all the time I had on Point. So we'll have to wait and see if free and fair elections takes place in Bangladesh or not. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time.
उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया.
Okay, 2026, take notes. Manifesting. More bubbles, less troubles. For my little Miss Sunshine, tickles and giggles. Also wanna be a biker chick this time. Allah, merci beaucoup. And year 2026, only love for my people and myself. To manifest my best life, nature's cosmic energy. Now mine, natural diamond intention pendants.
Welcome to the new episode of Season 2 Malaysia.
Delhi is losing the fight against pollution.
This is not a story of just children. This is the story of every elderly person in the national capital region.
Delhi's hazardous air quality.
It's more capital of the world.
Delhi pollution has left us sick and exposed, also frankly embarrassed.
Hazardous air quality are disrupting daily life.
Growing issue of toxic air looming large over Delhi.
Delhi's air quality index has been hovering between 300 and 400 for the past week.
The culprit was the same PM 2.5, the main pollutant which is emitted from heavy industries, power plants, vehicles, crop burning and coal-based heating.
The overall air quality of the city continues to remain in the very poor category.
We look at how Delhi is once again struggling with danger.
It's not just about today, it's about the future.
This is India's #1 news network.